Hello everyone, back again with movie and tune recap. Today, I'm going to explain an American found footage horror film from 2013, titled The Den. Spoilers ahead, so watch out and take care. In the opening scene, a woman logs into a social media platform called The Den, where she chats with random people. She connects with a boy named Billy, who asks if they can be friends, and she agrees. Billy then mentions a monster in his closet, but the woman reassures him that it is only his imagination. Billy insists it is real, and when he goes to his closet, the woman is suddenly frightened by the sight of a monster, only to realize it is a prank. The woman is Elizabeth Benton, a sociology graduate student using The Den for her thesis project, which aims to measure how many meaningful conversations she can have with strangers online. Professor Sally Winters convinces a university board to award grant money to Elizabeth for her research on social media communication using the online chat room. Elizabeth begins 24/7 chat roulette sessions on The Den, continuously recording everything on her laptop. Her commitment to the project reduces the time she spends with her friend Jenny, her pregnant sister Lynn, her long-distance boyfriend Damian Clark, and her tech-savvy friend Max, who appears to have a crush on her. Despite most chats ending quickly, Elizabeth gathers plenty of data and stays optimistic. During a video call with Damian, Elizabeth tells him about receiving the grant, and when he asks when she will visit him, she says she doesn't know yet. Elizabeth then receives a video call from her friend Jenny, who wants to come over for a beer night. That night, the friends browse the site, watching funny and prank videos. They come across a user with the handle Pyagirl16, whose profile shows a picture of a little girl. The user does not say anything, which they find unsettling, so they skip to the next chat. When Elizabeth excuses herself and leaves Jenny alone, the same user, Pyagirl16, appears again and types rude messages, which annoyed Jenny, and she closes the site. Later that night, while Elizabeth is asleep, her account is hacked and her webcam activates without her consent. Pyagirl16 pops up on the screen, and in the background, a woman's voice can be heard crying for help. The sound wakes Elizabeth, and she immediately turns off her computer. The next morning, while chatting with Damian, Elizabeth tells him that her system turned on by itself during the night and asks if he hacked it. Damian denies it and jokingly suggests it might be a ghost. Later, while on the site, Elizabeth encounters Pyagirl16 again, and this time the user messages her and asks if they can be friends, and Elizabeth agrees. That evening, Elizabeth receives an email from Professor Sally about her project, and she updates her on her progress. She also chats with Damian, who has moved into a new apartment, and invites her to visit, but Elizabeth says she can't for now because of her work. That night, while Elizabeth is sleeping, someone logs into her account and moves her laptop onto her bed. A man's hand is seen touching her, and when Elizabeth wakes up, it turns out to be her boyfriend Damian, who decided to visit her since she hasn't been able to visit him. Before they make love, Elizabeth logs out of the site, but her account is hacked again and her webcam secretly records her and Damian being intimate, and the video is then leaked to her graduate board. The next day, Elizabeth chats with her pregnant sister Lynn before continuing her work on The Denver. She encounters a man from Nigeria who turns out to be a scammer, but she realizes this quickly and moves to the next user. Again, she meets the user Pyagirl16, who mentions her intimacy with Damian the previous night, leaving her shocked. The user then shows her a video of a masked man murdering a young woman live on The Den. Elizabeth takes the video evidence to LAPD Sergeant Tisbert, but the police are unable to verify whether the footage is real. She then shows the video to Max, her tech-savvy friend, and asks him to trace its origin. Later, Elizabeth looks through Pyagirl16's friends list and video chats with several users, but most turn out to be perverts. She comes across one chat showing a group of friends playing Russian roulette, but it is revealed to be a prank. That night, Damian is video chatting with Elizabeth while returning to his car, and when Elizabeth turns away to answer a call, a masked man abducts Damian inside the vehicle. The next morning, Elizabeth receives a video chat request from Damian, but it turns out to be a previously recorded video, and his computer camera pans across his empty apartment, and suspicious, Elizabeth contacts Sergeant Tisbert. The police investigate Damien's apartment and find it completely empty except for his computer, but Sergeant Tisbert begins to believe Elizabeth is overreacting. While Elizabeth is still with the police at Damien's place, the hacker, who is user Pyagel16, logs into Elizabeth's account and messages Jenny, telling her to come to Elizabeth's apartment. Jenny soon arrives but finds the apartment empty. She discovers Elizabeth's laptop on the bed, and at that moment, a masked man appears behind her and knocks her unconscious. The next day, while chatting with Max, Elizabeth tells him about Damien's disappearance and asks if he has found any information about the murdered woman. Max explains that his attempts to trace the video failed due to extensive proxy routing, and frustrated, Elizabeth ends the chat. Later, Elizabeth receives a video call from Professor Sally regarding her leaked intimate video, which angered the board members, and as a result, Elizabeth's grant is suspended. Unable to reach Damien, Elizabeth contacts the people on his friends list to ask if they have heard from him. One woman says no, and a man claims he spoke with Damien the previous night and sends her a video, but it turns out to be a prank. Elizabeth reviews her last video chat with Damien and discovers that he was kidnapped, and she immediately informs the police. Later, she receives another video chat request from Damien, but it turns out the hacker has now taken over Damien's account and is using it. The hacker sends Elizabeth a link, and when she clicks on it, all her recorded videos are wiped. She invites Max over for help, but he is unable to retrieve the deleted files, and Elizabeth's growing frustration over Damien's disappearance leads to a heated argument between the two. That night, Elizabeth tries messaging Jenny but gets no response. The next morning, while jogging, Elizabeth receives a chat from Jenny asking her to come over, unaware that it is actually the hacker. When Elizabeth arrives, she finds Jenny's door open and the lights not working. She calls Jenny's phone and hears it ringing in the kitchen, but Jenny is nowhere in sight. As she searches the apartment, Elizabeth discovers the bathroom overflowing with water, and to her shock, finds Jenny dying in the bathtub from slit wrists. Elizabeth reports it to the police, and while she grieves, the hacker sends a fake email note to make Jenny's death appear to be a suicide. Fearing for her safety, Elizabeth watches a YouTube video on how to reload a gun and eventually obtains one for herself. Later, the hacker sends Elizabeth a live video feed showing preparations to assault her sister, Lynn. Elizabeth tries calling Lynn, but she doesn't answer, so she immediately contacts the police. Elizabeth eventually reaches her and tells her to leave the house, but due to bad reception, Lynn cannot understand what she's saying. Lynn hears a strange noise and is suddenly attacked by the masked killer. However, the police arrive in time to stop him from killing her, and he escapes, and it is then revealed that multiple killers are involved. Though police surround the property, an attacker disguised as an officer manages to retrieve the camera, suggesting inside knowledge or infiltration of law enforcement. A police officer escorts Elizabeth home, unaware that one of the masked men is secretly following them. The officer is assigned to watch over Elizabeth, and later while she is on the den, she receives a video chat request from Max. To her horror, she sees his apartment destroyed with no sign of Max. Sergeant Tisbert soon enters the scene to investigate, but he is suddenly attacked and killed by one of the masked men. Elizabeth then discovers a hidden camera implanted in her room, realizing the hacker has been watching her the entire time. The lights in her house go out, and when she tries to escape, she finds the police officer assigned to protect her has been brutally murdered. Elizabeth spots a masked man outside her house and arms herself with a kitchen knife. She soon encounters another intruder hiding in her closet, and after a violent struggle, Elizabeth manages to kill him. She runs out of her house, but she doesn't get far before being captured by another assailant. Elizabeth later wakes up chained inside an abandoned building, and she tries to free herself but fails. While searching the area, she finds a computer and discovers a camera stapled to her forehead. She attempts to remove it, but she cannot. She then sees live footage of Damien, who is still alive, and as they speak, he warns her that their captors are part of a larger network. She next watches a video of Max, who has also been captured, and moments later a masked killer enters Max's room and suffocates him to death. While grieving Max's death, Elizabeth sees video of Damien being dragged away by another killer to his presumed death. She then realizes her friends are picked off one by one, and in anger, Elizabeth destroys the monitor, and immediately after, one of the attackers enters her cell to kill her. However, she strangles him with her chain, frees herself from her restraints, and escapes into the dark complex, armed only with a hammer. Searching for an exit, she checks room after room, looking for Damien, convinced he is somewhere in the same building. She enters a room covered in blood, and moments later, is confronted by another attacker who begins chasing her through the building. Elizabeth manages to hide, and after losing the attacker, continues her search for an exit. She is then attacked by another assailant, this time a young boy. She fights him off and interrogates him, and he admits that Damien is not there. Elizabeth finally finds the exit and escapes the building, and while running, she sees several masked men pursuing her. She manages to hijack a getaway car, but doesn't make it far as another vehicle rams her, causing her to crash. The killers drag the now unconscious Elizabeth from the wrecked car and take her back underground. The film then shifts to another den user, Brienne, who had previously chatted with Elizabeth. Brienne receives a video sent from Elizabeth's hacked account, showing Elizabeth being hanged by a masked killer before she is shot to death by another. It is revealed that the attackers are part of a black market website that sells snuff films presented as narratives of victims being hunted through the Denver. A man browsing the site prepares to purchase Brienne's narrative, but he is interrupted by his young son. Okay guys, that's all the recap about The Den from 2013. Thanks for watching, see you again in the next video.